The ship was dying. Tilla knew this the way she knew her own heartbeat. The lights flickered every few minutes. The air tasted wrong, and the cold was creeping in from every wall. She floated through the corridor of the gentle dawn, her bioluminescent skin casting a soft blue glow against the metal walls. Once, this research vessel had been full of light and song. Now it held only 17 survivors and the smell of fear. Captain Wren waited for her on the bridge. He was older than anyone else on the ship, and his glow had faded to a dim purple. But his eyes still held wisdom. "How bad is it?" he asked. Tilla did not want to answer. "The engines are gone. Life support will fail in 6 days. Maybe 5? Wren closed his large dark eyes. The Valori were not built for hardship. They came from a gentle world of warm waters and soft winds. Their bodies were fragile. Their bones were like glass. They had never needed to be strong because their world had never tried to kill them. But space was not gentle, and the swarm was even less so. The attack had come without warning. 3 swarm ships had appeared from nowhere and torn the gentle dawn apart. They killed 23 crew members before they left. They did not take anything. They did not want anything. The swarm simply enjoyed killing. That was their nature. "We must send a distress call," Wren said. "Captain, no one will come. We are in the outer regions. The nearest Valori colony is 40 days away. Then we send the call on all frequencies. To everyone." Tilla felt cold that had nothing to do with the failing life support. All frequencies means the signal will reach the restricted zone. Wren was quiet for a long moment. Every child in the galaxy knew about the restricted zone. It was a region of space that held a single yellow star and a small blue planet. The Galactic Council had marked it forbidden 300 years ago, when the first scout ship made contact with the natives. The scout never returned. Neither did the second. The third came back, but its crew never spoke again. They simply sat in silence until they died, their eyes empty of all thought. The natives called their world Earth. The Galactic Council called it something else. Deathworld. A Class 12 death world, the most dangerous classification possible. A planet where everything evolved to kill. The water was poison. The air carried disease. The ground shook and split open. Fire fell from the sky. And the dominant species, the humans, had not only survived all of this, they had conquered it. "We cannot ask them for help," Tilla whispered. "They are monsters. The swarm will return to finish us. We have no weapons, no engines, no hope." Wren looked at her with tired eyes. "I would rather take my chances with monsters than die slowly in the dark." Tilla wanted to argue, but she had no words. She thought of the children sleeping in the lower decks. She thought of young Myra, who was only 6 years old and still believed someone would save them. "Send the call," she said. The signal went out into the void. It carried the location of their dying ship and a simple message: "Help us, please." For 3 days, nothing answered. The cold grew worse. 2 more crew members died. The children stopped asking when rescue would come. On the 4th day, Tilla was sitting with Myra when the communication system crackled to life. She ran to the bridge faster than she had ever moved. Captain Wren was already there, staring at the screen with an expression she could not read. "Someone answered," he said. "From the restricted zone." The message played again. The voice was strange, deeper than any Valori voice, rough like stones grinding together. But the words were clear. "This is the TS Horizon. We received your distress call. Hold on. We're coming." Tilla's blood turned to ice. TSS. Terran spaceship. Human. How long until they arrive? She asked. Wren checked the readings. 14 hours. The swarm could return before then. Yes. And if the humans reach us first, they might kill us. They might eat us. They might do things we cannot imagine. Ren turned to face her, and for the first time, she saw something like hope in his faded eyes. Or they might help us. Why would they help us? We are strangers to them. I do not know. But they are coming. That is more than anyone else has done. Tilla thought about the stories. Humans were said to hunt for pleasure. They consumed the flesh of other creatures. They had destroyed their own kind in wars so terrible that the numbers of dead could not be counted. They felt no fear. They felt no pain. They were the nightmares that the galaxy told its children about. And now those nightmares were coming to find them. She walked to the observation window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, a ship full of Deathworlders was racing toward them. She did not know what they would find when the humans arrived. But she knew one thing. Whatever happened next, the universe would never look the same again. Behind her, the children began to wake. Mira walked up and took Tella's hand. Her small body glowed with soft pink light. Tella, is someone coming to save us? Tella looked down at the child. She could not lie, but she could not tell the whole truth either. Yes, she said. Someone is coming? She just did not know if that was a good thing or a very, very bad one. The human ship was ugly. That was the first thing Tila noticed. Where Valori vessels were smooth and curved like flowing water, the TSS Horizon was all hard angles and sharp edges. It looked like it had been built for war, not for travel. Metal plates covered its surface like armor. Weapons pointed in every direction. It was also huge. The gentle dawn could have fit inside it 3 times over. They are hailing us, Captain Wren said. His voice was steady, but his glow had turned pale with fear. Answer them. The screen flickered and then Tilla saw a human for the first time. She had studied the archives. She had seen pictures. But nothing had prepared her for the reality. The human on the screen was female, according to the galactic databases. Her skin was a light brown color, solid and opaque, not bioluminescent like Valori skin. Her hair was black and pulled back from her face. And her eyes faced forward like all predators. I am Captain Park Ga of the TSS Horizon, the human said. Her voice was deep but not unkind. We received your distress signal. We are here to help. Wren spoke carefully. I am Captain Wren of the Valori research vessel Gentle Dawn. We thank you for coming. We were not sure anyone would. The human GOE tilted her head slightly. Of course we came. You needed help. She said it like it was obvious. Like there was no other possible choice. We are damaged badly. Our life support is failing. We know. We scanned your ship on approach. With your permission, I would like to send a team to assist with repairs and treat any wounded. Wren looked at Tila. She could see the question in his eyes. Could they trust these creatures? But they had no choice. Permission granted, Wren said. 30 minutes later, the humans boarded the Gentle Dawn. Tella watched them come through the airlock and felt her whole body go cold with terror. They were massive. The largest Valori barely reached their chests. Their bodies were thick with muscle under their strange fabric coverings. They moved with a kind of controlled power, like they were always holding back, always stopping themselves from moving too fast. There were 4 of them. GA led the group. Behind her walked a large male with kind eyes and a bag of medical supplies. A sharp-eyed female carried weapons on her belt, and a young male carried tools and smiled at everything he saw. I am Dr. Kang Do-yun, the large male said. He spoke softly, much softer than Tilla expected. I would like to see your wounded, please. Tilla led him to the medical bay. The other humans went to examine the engines. She watched the doctor carefully, waiting for him to show his true nature. But he only knelt beside the injured Valori and examined them with gentle hands. His fingers were thick and blunt, clearly made for breaking things, yet he touched her people like they were made of glass. Which, in a way, they were. "This wound is infected," he said, looking at a young Valori named Sori. "I can treat it, but I need to give her an injection. Is that acceptable?" Tella translated for Sori, who looked at the human with wide, terrified eyes. But she nodded. The doctor worked quickly. His movements were precise. Within an hour, he had treated everyone in the medical bay. No one died. No one was hurt worse. He simply helped them. Tella did not understand. She found Captain Ga in the corridor, studying a damaged wall panel. The human female looked up as Tilla approached. "Your ship took heavy damage," Ga said. "The swarm?" "Yes, they attacked without warning." Something changed in the human's face. Her jaw tightened. Her eyes grew cold. For a moment, Tella saw the predator that the archives had warned about. "How many did you lose?" 23. "We started with 40 crew members." Jihei was quiet for a long moment. "I am sorry. That is a terrible loss." "You feel sorry? For us?" "Of course I do." The human looked genuinely confused. "Why would I not?" Tella struggled to find words. "The Galactic archives say humans do not feel empathy, that you are cold, that you enjoy violence." Ga laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "The archives say many things about us. Not all of them are true." She paused. "We evolved on a hard world. We learned to fight because we had to. But fighting is not all we are. Then what are you?" "We are people. Just like you. We want to protect those we care about. We want to build good lives. We want our children to be safe." She looked at Tella with those predator eyes, and somehow they did not seem frightening anymore. "We answered your call because you needed help. That is reason enough." The young engineer Sunwoo, his name was, came running up to them. "Captain, I think I can fix their engines. It will take all night, but I can do it." "Then do it," Jihei said. Sunwoo grinned. "I was hoping you would say that." He ran off toward the engine room, still smiling. "He does not rest?" Tilla asked. "He will rest when the work is done. He would not sleep knowing your people were still in danger." Tilla looked at this human captain, at her tired eyes and steady hands, at the way she spoke about protecting strangers like it was the most natural thing in the world. Maybe the archives were wrong. Maybe humans were not just monsters. Or maybe they were monsters who chose to be something else. The sharp-eyed female lieutenant Yoon Nari approached with a serious expression. "Captain, long-range sensors are picking up movement. Multiple contacts bearing 275. The swarm?" "Confirmed. 12 ships. They will be here in 6 hours." Tilla's blood froze. 12 ships. Against 1 human vessel and 1 crippled Valori ship. It was impossible odds. They were going to die. But Captain Ga only nodded calmly. "Then we have 6 hours to prepare." She looked at Tila. "Get your people to the safest part of our ship. We will handle the swarm. You cannot fight 12 ships alone." The human smiled, and for the first time, Tilla saw something ancient and fierce behind her eyes. "We are humans," Jihei said. "We have been fighting impossible odds since before we left our caves. 12 ships is just another Tuesday." Tilla did not know what a Tuesday was, but she was beginning to understand something else. The Deathworlders had come, and they were not going to run away. The humans moved with purpose. Tilla had never seen anything like it. While the Valori huddled in fear, the humans prepared for war like they had done it 1,000 times before. Because they had. Sergeant Han Minji gathered her Marines in the cargo bay. Tilla watched from a distance as the human soldiers checked their weapons. The guns were loud, brutal things that fired metal at terrible speeds. The knives were simple tools designed only to cut flesh. "Listen up," Minji said. Her voice was calm, almost bored. A long scar ran down her face, but she smiled like it was just decoration. The swarm likes to board ships and kill crews up close. So we are going to give them exactly what they want. And then we are going to make them regret it. The Marines laughed. They actually laughed. A young soldier named Oh Tae-young noticed Tilla watching and walked over. He was tall and thin for a human, with nervous energy in his movements. "You should go to the safe room," he said gently. "Things are going to get loud." "I want to understand," Tilla said. "Why do you fight? This is not your war. We are not your people." Tae-young thought about the question. "My grandmother used to tell me stories about a time when humans did not help each other, when we let bad things happen because it was easier to look away." He shook his head. "We do not do that anymore. Not if we can help it. But you might die." "Yeah, I might." He shrugged like dying was just another possibility. "But if I run away and let innocent people get killed, what kind of person does that make me?" A calm voice came from behind them. "Corporal, stop flirting and get your gear." Private First Class Shin Yuna walked past, carrying a long weapon that Tilla recognized as a sniper rifle. She was small for a human, with sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. She moved without sound, like a shadow. "Yuna does not talk much," Tae-young said with a small smile. "But she is the best shot on the ship. If the swarm gets past her, they have already won." The ship shook suddenly. The swarm had arrived. Captain Jihee's voice came over the speakers. "All hands to battle stations. Valori civilians to the inner shelter. Marines, prepare to repel boarders." Tilla ran to gather the children. Little Myra held tight to her hand, her glow flickering with fear. The other Valori followed, their bodies shaking. The human ship was different from theirs. It was built for war. The corridors were wide enough for soldiers to run through. The walls were thick. The doors were heavy. The safe room was in the center of the ship, surrounded by layers of metal. Lieutenant Yoon Nari stood at the door with 2 other soldiers. "You will be safe here," Nari said. "Nothing will get through us. What if the swarm wins?" Tilla asked. Nari's eyes went cold. "They will not." The battle began. Tilla could not see what happened outside, but she could hear it. The ship shook with impacts. Explosions roared through the metal walls. The lights flickered. Through the door, she heard shouting, then screaming, then the terrible sound of weapons firing. The swarm had boarded. Myra buried her face in Tilla's chest. The other Valori huddled together, their glows dim with terror. They were not made for this. They were not made for violence and death and war. But the humans were. Through the door, Tilla heard Sergeant Minji's voice cutting through the chaos. "Hold the line. Do not let them pass." The sounds were terrible. Metal against metal. Bodies hitting walls. The wet sound of blades cutting flesh. Humans and swarm dying in the corridors outside. Then a different sound, a high-pitched scream that Tilla knew too well. A swarm hunter, close. Too close. The door shook. Something was trying to break through. Lieutenant Nari raised her weapon. "Stay behind me." The door burst open. A swarm hunter stood in the entrance, tall, insect-like, covered in black armor. Its many legs clicked against the floor. Its mandibles dripped with something dark. It saw the Valori children and made a sound like hunger. Nari fired. The bullets hit the hunter's armor, cracking it. The creature screamed and charged. What happened next took only seconds. Nari stepped forward, and met the charge. She grabbed the hunter's mandibles with her bare hands, her soft, fleshy, breakable hands, and twisted. The hunter's neck snapped with a sound like breaking wood. But more were coming. Tilla could see them in the corridor, climbing over the bodies of fallen Marines. Then Corporal Taeyang appeared. He was bleeding from a wound on his arm, but he did not seem to notice. He stood in front of the doorway and fired until his weapon clicked empty. Then he pulled out a knife and kept fighting. "Get the children deeper inside," he shouted. Tilla grabbed Mira and ran. Behind her, she heard Taeyang fall. She heard him cry out. But when she looked back, he was still fighting, still standing between the monsters and the children. Private Yuna appeared from somewhere above. Tila did not even know the ship had upper passages. She dropped down behind the swarm hunters and began shooting with terrible accuracy. One shot, one kill. Over and over. When her rifle was empty, she pulled out a pistol. When the pistol was empty, she pulled out a knife. Sergeant Minji arrived with more Marines. They crashed into the swarm like a wave of fury. The fighting was brutal, close, personal. Humans and swarm died together in the narrow corridor. Then, suddenly, it was over. The last swarm hunter fell. The ship stopped shaking. Captain Jihee's voice came over the speakers. "All swarm vessels destroyed or retreating. We have won." Won. Such a simple word for so much death. Tilla walked back to the doorway. The corridor was covered in bodies, swarm hunters and human Marines alike. Taeyang sat against a wall, holding his bleeding arm. He looked up at her and smiled weakly. "The children are safe?" "Yes, because of you." "Good." He closed his eyes. "That is good." Yuna knelt beside him and began treating his wound. Her hands, which had killed so many just moments ago, were now gentle and careful. Tilla looked at these humans, these Deathworlders. They had fought like demons. They had killed without hesitation. They were everything the archives had warned about. But they had also bled for strangers. They had died for children they had never met. They had chosen to stand in front of monsters instead of running away. Sergeant Minji walked up to Tilla. Her face was covered in dark swarm blood. Her eyes were tired. "Everyone okay in there?" she asked. "Yes, thank you." Minji nodded. "Just doing our job." She paused. "Sorry you had to see all that. We tried to keep the fighting away from the civilians." Tilla looked at the dead swarm hunters on the floor, at the dead Marines who had given their lives, at Taeyang, who was smiling even though he was wounded. "You are not monsters," she said quietly. Minji laughed, that same dark laugh Tilla had heard before the battle. "No, we are definitely monsters. But we get to choose what kind of monsters we want to be." She walked away to check on her soldiers. Tilla stood alone in the bloody corridor, surrounded by death, and thought about what it meant to choose. The ship was quiet now. A terrible, heavy quiet that felt like a weight on Tilla's chest. 3 humans were dead. 11 more were wounded. The medical bay was full of blood and bandages. And the humans were mourning. Tilla watched from a distance as Captain Jie stood before 3 coffins draped in fabric. The whole crew had gathered. Even the wounded had come, supported by their friends. Even Corporal Taeyang was there, his arm wrapped in white cloth. Jie spoke about each person who had died. She said their names. She told stories about their lives. Private Kim Sahi had wanted to be a teacher when she returned home. Private Lee Jung-won had a daughter he had never met. Private Choi Yeren had been the youngest Marine on the ship, only 20 years old. 20 years old. Just a child, really. Dead because she chose to stand between monsters and strangers. The humans sang a song. Tilla did not understand the words, but the sound was beautiful and sad. Some of the humans cried. Others held each other. Even the tough soldiers, the ones who had fought like demons just hours ago, wiped tears from their eyes. This confused Tyler more than anything else. After the ceremony, she found a quiet corner and sat alone. She needed to think. She needed to understand. A voice interrupted her thoughts. "Mind if I sit?" She looked up. An older human male stood nearby. His hair was gray at the edges, and his face was lined with age. He moved carefully, like someone who had lived through many hard things. "I am Chief Petty Officer in Jawan," he said. "Most people call me Chief. I am Tilla, I know." He sat down across from her with a small groan. "You have been watching us, trying to understand." "Yes, I do not understand you at all." Jawan smiled. It was a tired smile. "Nobody does. Not even us sometimes. Your people killed so easily, so naturally, like it was nothing. But then you cry for the dead. You speak their names with love. How can you do both?" The old human was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was soft. "Let me tell you about Earth, about where we come from." He told her stories. Terrible stories. Humans had fought wars that killed millions of their own kind. They had built weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. They had done terrible things to each other: slavery, genocide, cruelty without reason. Tilla listened with growing horror. Everything the archives said was true. Humans were monsters. But Jawan was not finished. He told her other stories. Stories about humans who stood against the cruelty. Humans who protected strangers. Humans who gave their lives to save others. He told her about doctors who traveled to dangerous places to heal the sick. About ordinary people who hid others from killers. About soldiers who carried children out of burning buildings. "We are not good by nature," Jawan said. "We are not born kind. Our world did not allow kindness to survive easily. But that is exactly why we value it so much." He looked at her with eyes that had seen too much. "Every single day, we wake up and choose what kind of human we want to be. Violence is easy for us. Kindness is hard. That is what makes it meaningful." Tilla thought about Corporal Taeyong standing in front of monsters with an empty weapon. About Private Yuna checking on the children with gentle words after killing a dozen enemies. About Sergeant Minji calling her soldiers family. "You choose," she said slowly. "Every day. Every day. Every moment. It never gets easier. But the choice is always there." In another part of the ship, Captain Ga met with Elder Ren. The old Valori captain looked even smaller next to the human female, but he did not seem afraid anymore. "The galactic community fears your kind," Ren said. "They call you monsters. They keep you isolated." Ga nodded. "We know. It hurts, honestly, to be judged for what we can do instead of what we choose to do." She paused. "But I understand why they are afraid. We are dangerous. There is no point in pretending otherwise. Does it not make you angry? To be treated like beasts? Sometimes. But anger is easy. Understanding is hard." She looked out the window at the stars. "If our reputation makes species like the swarm think twice before attacking, then maybe it is worth it. Let them fear us. As long as the innocent are protected. That is a heavy burden to carry." "Yes, but we have been carrying heavy burdens since we climbed down from the trees. One more will not break us." Ren studied her face. "You are not what I expected, Captain Park Ga. Neither are you, Captain Ren. I expected you to run when the fighting started. But you stayed on the bridge and coordinated evacuations. You helped our wounded find the medical bay. You never stopped working, even when you were terrified." "I was terrified." "I know. That is what makes it brave." Later, Tilla found herself in the common room where the Valori children had gathered. Something had changed. The children were no longer hiding from the humans. Instead, they were sitting with them. Little Myra was showing Corporal Taeyong how to make her skin glow in different colors. He watched with wide eyes, genuinely amazed, even though he was a soldier who had killed enemies just hours ago. "That is so beautiful," he said. Mira giggled. Then she reached into her pouch and pulled out something small and glowing, a bioluminescent flower. It was the highest honor a Valori could give. She placed it in Taeyong's hand. "For protecting us," she said in careful, practiced words. Taeyong stared at the flower. His eyes grew wet. He tried to speak but could not. Instead, he just held the flower close to his chest and cried silently. Dr. Kang was watching from across the room. Tilla saw tears on his face too. "Why is he crying?" she asked the doctor. "He is a warrior. He killed so many." Kang wiped his eyes. "Because being seen is the most powerful thing in the universe." That little girl did not see a monster. She saw someone who protected her. Someone worthy of honor. He took a shaky breath. "We are so used to being feared. Being thanked means more than you can imagine." Tilla looked around the room. Humans and Valori, sitting together. Warriors and children, sharing stories. Monsters and innocents, no longer separated. A communication signal interrupted the moment. Lieutenant Nari's voice filled the room. "Captain to the bridge. We are receiving a transmission from Valori space." Tilla ran to the bridge with Captain Jie and Elder Ren. The message played on the main screen. It was a distress call from the Valori colonies. "The swarm is massing," the transmission said. 30 ships or more. They are coming for our homeworld. Please, anyone, help us." Jia looked at Ren. Ren looked at Tilla. The humans had already fought one battle. They had already lost people. They had no obligation to fight again. This was not their war. These were not their people. But Tilla already knew what they would choose. "Set a course for Valori space," Captain Jie said. "Maximum speed." "Captain," Lieutenant Nari said carefully, "we are one ship against 30. Jie smiled that ancient, fierce smile again. "Then we had better not waste any time. The Deathworlders were going to war again. And this time, they were bringing friends." The journey to Valori space took 3 days. 3 days that changed everything. Captain Jie called a meeting of the entire crew. Humans and Valori gathered together in the cargo bay. Jie stood before them all. "What we are about to do is dangerous," she said. "This is not our war. These are not our orders. No one will blame you if you want to stay behind." She called for a vote. Every human had a choice. The vote was unanimous. Every single human raised their hand to fight. Engineer Sunwoo looked at Tilla afterward and shrugged. "Did you really think any of us would say no?" During the journey, something beautiful happened. The barriers between species began to break down. Sunwoo taught the Valori children human games. Simple things like hide and seek, rock, paper, scissors, catch. The children laughed, real laughter, not the frightened sounds they had made since the first attack. In return, the children taught Sunwoo to sing with light. His skin could not glow, so they gave him small light stones to hold. He danced with them in the dark, surrounded by colors. Sergeant Minji shared her war stories with Tilla. At first, the tales seemed terrifying. But as Tilla listened more carefully, she understood something. Minji had seen terrible things. She had done terrible things. But she had always tried to protect the innocent. She had always tried to make the hard choices so others would not have to. "I am not a hero," Minji said. "I am just a soldier. I do what needs to be done." "That is what makes you a hero," Tilla replied. Minji looked surprised. Then she smiled a real smile, not the dark one she usually wore. Chief Jawan spent hours telling the Valori about human history and culture. He showed them art and music and poetry. He showed them the beauty that humans had created alongside the destruction. Temples and gardens. Songs and stories. Love letters and lullabies. We build as much as we destroy, he said. Sometimes more. The universe just likes to focus on the destruction. On the third day, they arrived at the Valori colonies. The sight was terrible. 30 swarm ships circled the main planet like hungry predators. On the surface, cities were burning. Ships were fleeing in every direction. The Valori defense fleet, what little there was, had been destroyed. And standing between the swarm and complete destruction was one human ship. Captain GA opened a communication channel to all frequencies. Swarm forces, this is Captain Park GA of the TSS Horizon. This colony is under our protection. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The swarm response came as laughter. Clicking, chittering laughter that made Tella's skin crawl. One ship, the swarm commander said. One tiny ship from a tiny world. You are welcome to die with the prey. GA smiled. I was hoping you would say that. The Horizon charged. What followed was not really a battle. It was a statement. The Horizon dove into the swarm formation like a knife into flesh. Its weapons blazed in all directions. Ships exploded. The swarm scattered in confusion. But one ship could only do so much. Soon the Horizon was surrounded. Damage reports flooded in. Hull breaches. Weapons failures. Casualties. Lieutenant Yunari led a team of Marines to board one of the swarm command ships. It was a suicide mission, and everyone knew it. But it would disable the swarm coordination. It has been an honor, Nari said before she left. She never came back. Corporal Taeyang held the engine room against 3 waves of boarders. His arm was still wounded from the last battle, but he fought anyway. When his weapon jammed, he used his fists. When his fists were not enough, he used tools, pipes, anything he could grab. Private Yuna climbed through the maintenance shafts, hunting swarm boarders one by one. Silent, deadly, tireless. The Valori civilians huddled in the safe room again. This time, Tyla stayed with Captain Ren, helping coordinate evacuations on the planet below. She was terrified, but she refused to hide. If the humans could fight, she could work. The Horizon was dying. Everyone knew it. The swarm was too many. And then the sensors detected new signals. Many new signals. What is that? Tilla asked. Captain GA looked at the readings. Her face broke into a wide smile. Reinforcements. 12 human ships burst out of faster-than-light travel. The Horizon had sent a distress call when they left for Valori space. And the humans had answered. The battle turned. Where there had been 1 ship, now there were 13. Where there had been desperation, now there was hope. The swarm found themselves surrounded, outgunned, and facing the full fury of humanity. Within an hour, it was over. The swarm fleet was destroyed or fleeing. The colonies were saved. But the cost was high. Tilla stood in the memorial hall as they honored the fallen. 17 humans had died in the battle. Lieutenant Nari's name was read first. Captain GA spoke about her courage, her dedication, her sacrifice. She knew she would not return, GA said. She went anyway. That is what it means to be human. A week later, Tilla stood before the Galactic Council. Representatives from 100 species watched as she gave her testimony. I was on the Gentle Dawn when we sent our distress call, she said. We called for help on all frequencies. Do you know who answered? Not our allies. Not our trading partners. not the species who call themselves civilized. She looked around the room. Many faces turned away in shame. The only ones who answered were the Deathworlders. The humans. The monsters from the restricted zone. She paused to let the words sink in. They saved us. They bled for us. They died for us. And when they learned our homeworld was in danger, they went there too. One ship against 30, because they could not stand by and watch innocent people die. They are everything the archives say. They are violent. They are dangerous. They carry the capacity for terrible destruction in their very bones. But they also carry something else. The capacity to choose. And they chose to help strangers. They chose to sacrifice themselves. They chose to be good. She looked directly at the council leaders. Perhaps we have been wrong about Deathworlders. Perhaps surviving a world that tries to kill you every day does not make you a monster. Perhaps it makes you treasure life even more. Perhaps it teaches you that the only thing worth fighting for is protecting others. The council was silent. I am not asking you to trust the humans completely. I am asking you to give them a chance. Let them prove what they truly are. Because what I saw was not monsters. I saw heroes. The vote took 3 days. When it was finished, the council agreed to open diplomatic relations with humanity. The restricted zone would remain, but humans would be allowed to travel and trade. They would no longer be isolated. It was a small step, but it was a beginning. On the day the announcement was made, Captain Jihei visited the memorial for Lieutenant Nari. She placed a single Valori light flower on the stone. Tilla found her there, glowing softly in morning colors. She would have liked this, Jihei said quietly. Nari always believed that we could be more than what the galaxy thought we were. She was right. They stood together in silence for a long time. Human and Valori. Predator and prey. Monster and innocent. But those labels did not mean anything anymore. They were just two friends honoring the dead, hoping for a better future. What happens now? Tilla asked. Jihei looked up at the stars. Now we keep going. We answer more distress calls. We show the galaxy who we really are. One choice at a time, and if they still fear you. Jihei smiled. Then we give them reasons not to. The same way we always have. By showing up when it matters. She placed her hand on Tilla's shoulder. The touch was gentle, warm, alive. The distress call was answered by Deathworlders, Jihei said. And the galaxy will never be the same. Tilla looked at the stars. At the endless possibilities waiting out there. At the future they would build together. No, she said. It will not. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like a good thing.